Outlaw Nation Chapter 5. The bikes roared past the old van on the winding road that led up into the mountains. They pulled off onto the logging road that circled the moonlit reservoir. Tiny and Hammer cut their engines and rolled the bikes to a stop in the dirt turnaround area. Several minutes later, the van with Buddy and Roger pulled in behind them and cut their engine as well. A pickup truck parked at the other end flashed its lights quickly on and off. Roger was instructed to pull the van forward to meet the pickup as it pulled forward as well. 3 men got out of the truck and stood by the tailgate. Buddy gave Roger a loaded shotgun, told him to stay in the van. He got out and joined Tiny and Hammer as they approached the truck. Buddy and the passenger in the truck shook hands and talked briefly. One of the men from the truck opened the tailgate at his boss's instruction. There sat several large crates. Buddy popped the cover off one and pulled out a brand new rifle, military issue M16. He examined it and placed it back in the crate. He signaled to Tiny, who came forward and opened the remaining crates to verify their contents as well. When he gave Buddy the nod, money exchanged hands between Buddy and the truck's passenger. Tiny and Hammer loaded the crates from the pickup into the van. Tiny pulled a large moving blanket over them. The 3 men got back into the truck, and Buddy climbed into the van. Tiny and Hammer mounted their bikes, and they all drove off into the night. Roger and Buddy drove cautiously down the road, through town, and onto the secondary highway, headed toward the Vermont border. Hammer and Tiny followed closely behind. About 3 miles from the state line, a lone trooper sat in his car off the side of the road. When the van passed him, he noticed a rear taillight was out. He immediately turned his lights on and pulled out after the van. When Buddy saw him, he looked over at the speedometer. Roger said, "Been doing the limit the whole way." Buddy asked, "Why is he pulling us over?" Roger answered, "No idea, Buddy, but I ain't been speeding." The van pulled off the shoulder of the road, and the trooper followed it in. With the van stopped, as the trooper approached the driver, the 2 bikes pulled in behind him. The trooper, standing now at the door of the van, turned and ordered the 2 motorcyclists to stay put and not to dismount the bikes. He then reached to his side to grab the transmitter on his radio, which was mounted to his belt. Roger saw this and flew the van door open, knocking the trooper over. He jumped out and subdued the trooper onto his knees. By this time, Tiny and Hammer had gotten up to the van where the trooper was kneeling and stood with Roger. Buddy got out and started to come around the van. Tiny drew his .45 from his belt and pointed it at the trooper. Roger saw Tiny going for his gun, and without hesitation he spun around and kicked it from his hand. Tiny threw a punch which landed square on Roger's jaw. He recoiled back and almost fell to the ground. He kicked Tiny in the side of the head with his right foot and lunged forward and delivered 2 blows to his chest and nose in quick succession. Tiny was thrown back and landed flat on his back. The wind knocked out of him. The trooper began to stand up, and Buddy delivered a kick to his head, which knocked him out. Roger, enraged, went for Tiny, who was just beginning to get up. "What do you think you were doing?" He grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him toward him, only to stop him by delivering 3 more powerful punches to Tiny's face. A bloodied, stunned Tiny fell back to the ground in a daze. Buddy intervened. Roger, enough. Hammer, help Tiny into the van. Roger, take Tiny's ride and head out with Hammer now. Roger started on Buddy. What was that? You said no killing. I ain't going down for no murder, especially a cop. Are you guys crazy? He was enraged. Buddy stepped forward. I've no idea what he was thinking. You did good. I promise you we will sort this out when we get back home. Go with Hammer. We still have a schedule to keep. I'll deal with Tiny. And when these rifles are delivered and we get home, I promise you we will sort this out. Go now. We're right behind you. Roger looked at the van and down at the trooper who was unconscious, but otherwise fine. He looked back at Buddy. Before either could say anything, Hammer stepped forward and put his hand on Roger's shoulder. Come on, Armageddon. Let's roll. The road will feel good. The bikes roared off up the road. The van followed them toward the meeting in Vermont to unload the guns.